Hello, I'm Amanda Ann Gregory, and today I'm going to go over a couple of slides from my presentation, Anxiety and Trauma Coping Skills. And these are going to be very specific coping mechanisms that you can use very easily. And I chose them specifically because they are the crowd favorites amongst my clients. Now, before I get into them, I want to let you know that these skills are not a fix. This isn't about never responding with anxiety, never experiencing trauma, fixing everything. This is more about managing the impact of stress and trauma and anxiety. There is no one size fits all. There has never been research that indicates that one coping skill will work for every single person. We have not found it. So it's important as I go through these that you know some of these might work really well for you, others simply won't, and that's okay. Also, I want you to remember that it's good to have a combination of skills. It's very rare that one skill will work for us every single time in every single setting. We really want to look at having a combination of skills that typically work so we can utilize them whenever needed in very different settings. Think of it as just building your toolbox. As I go through these skills, I encourage you to maybe try them out as I discuss them. And what you're looking for is, does it work for me? Now, how do you know that? A few things. You may notice yourself feeling calmer. You may feel a bit more present or focused. You also might feel a little tired. Now, remember, when we are practicing coping skills and we're not stressed, we're not having trauma responses, sometimes our body will feel fatigued or tired. And sometimes that's a really good indicator that it will work really well for you in the actual moment when you need it. So let's get down to the skills. First off is brain games. And this is a cognitive skill. What this does is this brings your brain into the present moment, into your prefrontal cortex as quick as possible. So when we're experiencing overwhelming anxiety or trauma, we're actually not in our prefrontal cortex. We're in different parts of our brain, such as the limbic system or the brainstem. But in order for us to feel engaged in the present, we got to be in our prefrontal cortex. So here are a couple of things that you may want to try to see if they get you there. The first is the ABC game. This is when we choose a topic, and I suggest to be something that you're passionate about and something you know a bit about. And we go through the ABCs with the first letter corresponding to an item from that topic. For example, if you love to travel, you may choose cities, and you would say either out loud or in your head, Amsterdam, Berlin, Cairo, Detroit, what's an E? El Paso, Frankfurt, and eventually I'm going to get stuck. It always happens when you get stuck, and that's a very good thing. Some people will allow themselves to be stuck a little bit and then just go about their day doing what they were doing because that's all they need. Some people might be stuck and keep going through. It all depends on what works for you. The purpose of this is not to get all the way to Z. The purpose is to click your brain back over into the prefrontal cortex, and that may not take a lot of time. Instead of doing the ABC game, some people prefer lists. And again, you choose a topic that you like, that you know something about, and you just list off as many as you can. So for example, if I was an avid reader, I might pick women authors, and I might just try and list as many as I can. I might say Toni Morrison, Sylvia Plath, let's see, Jane Austen, every single Bronte sister. I may just go through them. And eventually we're going to stop. We're going to get stuck. And sometimes I notice that's the moment when our brain clicks over. You can also try memorizing. Memorize something new and then recite it. And it could be anything. It could be a poem. It could be a famous speech or song lyrics, something you like, something you want to memorize, and something that you can do so in the moment. So brain games are supposed to be very brief, things that you can do to jump into your prefrontal cortex whenever needed. Give them a try. Here's the next one, grounding. Now, you probably heard about this one. I tend to do this a bit differently in regards to anxiety and trauma, where I tend to focus more on the sensory experience. So when we're grounding, we might look around and notice what we see. Now, my brain tends to get bored with this, so I like to make it entertaining. I might look for one color. So I may look for everything that's green or has a green tone. And if that's too easy, I may look for orange or red. Sometimes those can be tougher colors depending on where we live and our decor and what environment we're in. You can also look for shapes. You can also look for things that might be out of place, but keep it interesting. Keep your brain engaged. Remember, if your brain's bored, it may not be able to kind of refocus with this grounding. Incorporating touch into this, you can feel the sensations on your own skin or your own clothing, and you can touch anything around you, but truly noticing how that feels. Smell. You can notice the smells in your environment. You can smell you. Notice what you smell like. You can also choose a scent that you like and really smell that. Now, when I mean really smell it, I mean really smell it. How many smells does it actually have? How would you describe it? Sound. I want you to listen to every sound you can hear now. I wonder how many you heard. That's a great way to incorporate sounds. As we listen, sometimes we hear little sounds in the background that we didn't notice. It's a great way to calm the anxiety, bring us into the present to challenge those trauma responses. And taste. You may notice what taste you have in your mouth now, or you might cheat and grab a cold drink, a warm drink, or a mint, and really noticing what that tastes like. When it comes to grounding, I encourage my clients to notice one or two senses that really hones them in. We are all very different. For example, I am really focused on sight and touch. So those are my top two. I tend to go to those first. And if I need to incorporate the other senses in, I can, but sometimes I don't have to. So it might help you to start with the senses that make most sense to you. Muscle relaxation. You may have heard of this one. So when we are experiencing anxiety or trauma responses, a lot of times our muscles will contract. We don't mean to do this. This is completely subconscious, and this is a way that our body is trying to protect us because our body in that moment doesn't feel safe. The problem with this is that contracted muscles create anxiety, which creates contracted muscles, which create anxiety. We get in this loop. So to get out of this, you can actually intentionally relax those muscles. Well, how do I do that? Intentionally contract them more than they already are in order to release. So for example, if I had tense muscles in my forearms, I might really squeeze those muscles to contract them and then release. And here's how you do it. So you find a way to squeeze those muscles, and this could be any muscle group, focusing on one at a time. You squeeze for about 10 seconds. Now, when I say squeeze, I say squeeze. Shake a little bit. Now, if you have an injury, you might want to consult a doctor before doing this. After 10 seconds, I'm going to go limp with that muscle group. So my arms are just hanging at my sides. And this is a great method to release that tension. I'm probably going to take a breath here. My body already wants to take a breath. That's a great way to calm anxiety as well. When we are squeezing and releasing, we can do that on any muscle group in our body. Some of us know where our muscle tension is. We might squeeze and release only on those muscle groups. That's completely fine. Some people prefer to go through every muscle group in their body. It doesn't matter. Find what works for you. And here's the last one that I'm going to share. Open postures. When it comes to anxiety and trauma, an open posture can be a great way to tell your body that you are safe in this moment. When we engage in closed postures, yes, that can come across as lacking confidence to other people. And typically when we hear about postures, that's what we hear about. How are we coming across to other people? This is more about us. What am I communicating to my body? When I have a closed posture, even if it's just slight, I am indirectly communicating to my body that we're not safe. We need to be anxious. We need to be on guard. But if I open up my posture, I can communicate that the opposite is true, even if I'm feeling anxious. The thing about open postures is you need to find your own, and all our open postures might look a little bit different. When you're finding your open posture, think about your vital organs, because when we close in our postures, Those are the organs that we're trying to protect. And it's a straight line down your body, your brain, your throat, your airways, your lungs, your stomach, your genitalia. So what we do is we open up and we don't try to protect those organs because they don't need it right now. I always tell people when you're finding your open posture, take up some space. That usually helps. You can take up space physically in this world. You're not being inconsiderate to anybody. When you open up, you might have your arms down at your sides hanging. You may have them kind of up in here. You know, my open posture looks a little silly. I look like a cactus, but it works really well at me because I carry my tension here, so I get to push out my chest and neck. Some people prefer to have their arms all the way over their heads, and that's their open posture. Some folks prefer to just look straight. Some folks need to actually look high up to the sky because it really opens up their neck. Now, remember, any open posture that you do, the intensity usually increases when you stand. So if you need it a bit more intense, you may stand up in the open posture. Those of you who've done yoga, you're probably having some flashbacks right now. It is very, very similar to yoga. And if you want to do this laying down, it would be laying down on your back and having your hands down at your sides or all the way up head and really opening up those vital organs. When it comes to open postures, I always tell folks practice them often and just allow your body a little bit of time to process sensations. So if I'm doing an open posture, I'm probably not going to be in it for a second and then come out of it. I might just kind of be in it. I may notice what's happening in my body. I need to take a breath, and honestly, my neck needs to stretch. So look, once we get in our body, all of a sudden our body is giving us more and more information. Now, remember, not all these postures are going to work for you, and that's completely fine. Not all the interventions, they're not supposed to. Find what works for you and practice that as much as you can, and those might be great ways for you to manage your anxiety and trauma responses.